Hello, everyone. That is Laura, and this is Kyle, and it's another episode of He Said, She Said. Laura, it's been a little while.
Yes, it has. And we're back.
Yes, we are back. So we have an interesting little conversation that we're going to have tonight, a little morsel, if you will. So I started a new blog series about a month or so ago. And just to kind of lay out the context real fast, as you already know, me and the Queen are engaged, and we will be getting married in about another year or so from now. And what we have begun to do is we've really begun this process of kind of prepping for remarriage, right? I mean, there are a lot of different types of books out there for couples that are getting married. There's a lot of faith-based devotionals out there for couples, but there's not really a lot of remarriage books about couples that are in our unique situation, blending families, things of that nature. So what I decided to do is we found some resources that we chose that we've kind of had to fit, with a little bit of elbow grease into our situation. And what I decided to do was take topics that I thought were important and things that we had talked about in detail, and then maybe share the general thoughts of what we came out of that conversation in a blog post. So what I'm calling it is, it's a remarriage series, okay? And, saying I do again. All right. So, and every so often I'll choose a different topic. And the first one that I chose was what I called the danger of expectations. Okay. And so here's what I mean by that. And I think that you can appreciate what I'm about to say. So as a divorced man, you're a divorced woman, and really with any relationship, past relationship, we inherently carry into our future relationships certain expectations. All right. Those expectations most often are formed through breakups in past relationships. For example, if you were cheated on in a past relationship, you are very sensitive to fidelity in the next one that you're going to go into. It's an expectation that you have, right? The problem that happens almost in every situation, Laura, is that too often we carry those expectations in and begin to paint the other partner with the sins of past mistakes. So, for example, if I've been cheated on, and I have before, I'm very sensitive not only to this idea of fidelity, right? But more importantly, I'm sensitive to behaviors that could eventually point in the direction of fidelity. Flirting and things of that nature. So it takes a very mature Kyle to kind of control himself, or he could become a little bit of a freakazoid, okay? And that's what I mean, right? It's painting others, the Queen, with someone else's relationship failures. And we have to be very careful of that, because if we're not watchful of it, we gravitate towards that every single time.
Yeah, and I struggle with this, actually. And actually, cheating is a good example. So my relationships have not... I haven't had that, or not that I'm aware of, right? But you hear once a cheater, always a cheater. You hear those kinds of things, which I've often struggled with. Maybe that's not necessarily true. And you and I have had conversations about the best way to judge someone's current, future behavior is by their past behavior. But yet, I haven't been perfect. I've been far from it. But you're absolutely right about bringing forward expectations. And the other phrase that bugs the hell out of me too, I'm going to tell you. I have my walls up. He has his walls up. That kind of like, he's been done wronged, or I've been wronged, and so now I can't go forward comfortably. And I guess what you're saying makes me think, where's the point at which you create the new expectation of moving forward? And where's the point where you You let go of, of what was or what happened to you, or all of those things, in order to be open to set the new foundation for what's going to be, which is a hard thing to do. If you, as I say, if you're an upperclassman in life and love, and you've been there, done that.
I referenced in my article that a relationship, okay, is just like a blank canvas, a painting canvas. And we look at that canvas and we imagine everything that might be, right? We think to ourselves, will this finally be the masterpiece that people have said is in me, and what at times I have felt is in me as well? Will this be the one that we can finally hang in the museum and receive all this adoration for? But there's also hesitation there, right? Because we have probably stood in front of a very similar canvas before, right? Thinking the same thing, only in a matter of months or years to take the canvas and throw it in the fire and walk away in frustration and hurt and anger, okay? What happens too often, though, and I've been guilty of this, and I'm sure most of us have, is we reach for the next blank canvas way too quickly. We don't take the time to learn the mistakes that we made, because if we get hurt in a relationship or not, if someone cheats on us, if someone treats us bad, if we are hurt in a relationship, if we can't look at the mistakes that we made, that while may not have contributed directly to it, did indirectly, if we can't accept those and learn from those, then we're going to take those same mistakes into the next one, and we will paint the exact same new canvas the way that we did the old one. So we go into it too fast. So to answer your question, we have to learn the part and the mistakes that we made so that we hopefully don't make them again.
You know what? I hear people all the time, because of my work in the divorce arena, just because someone cheated on you doesn't make them the only person who contributed to the demise of that relationship. And we all know that there's something to learn, whether you've been hurt legitimately or not. And it's in understanding that, how we got into a situation where we are now hurt, that you can only figure out, I want to come out of that dark period of my painting and go into the rainbow years.
There is a very fine line between appreciating and having respect for the lessons that we've learned in the past, and turning those lessons into unhealthy expectations, okay? Because let's be frank, you and Drew, you both have expectations on what you believe will make a relationship work. Some of those expectations come together, some of them do not, all right? It's those that do not that we have to be most careful of, because those expectations that you have that are different from the ones that he has could invariably, if we don't handle them properly and we do not have respect for them, both for our own and for the other person's, those will ultimately be the ones that will end up being the root cause for why the relationship dies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every single time. And the common practice is to say, we'll work it out later. It'll take care of itself. We're close enough on everything else that this set of expectations is not a big deal. We get along in so many other ways. It's that. But it was once explained to me, you can have 98% of everything you want in someone, and that's great. But if that 2% is the one or two things that are deal breakers for you, it doesn't matter that you have 98% of everything that you could want in someone. That one tiny thing, but that's your deal breaker thing, it is the thing that's going to end it. And it's hard to talk about some of them. And so we'll do almost anything we can, like you said, to address them properly and give them the attention and the respect that they need and they deserve.
One of the exercises that she and I did was really to look at each other and give. She was to give me three expectations. Three, well, we didn't call it expectations, we called it hopes. Three hopes that she has of me and vice versa. And it started out like this. My hope is that you will always dot, 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 dot. Now, we can call it hope, but Laura, at the end of the day, it's an expectation. What she is essence saying is when she says, I hope that you will always dot, 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 she has just told me what she believes makes relationships work. Those are the things that obviously are most important to her. All right, she likes them and whatever those things were. But in essence, what she has told me, though, is two things. One, this is what I believe makes relationships work, and this is what will make me feel that our relationship is working when you're doing it. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Now that sounds like a healthy exercise, and it is. Until I hope you will always turns out to be more like I demand that you always. All right. So we take that expectation, because it is an expectation, and it should be a healthy one, right? Because it should represent what we want and need from our partner, but it can become distorted, and then it becomes an unhealthy expectation. And once again, that's where we get in trouble.
That's where the rubber meets the road, right? I mean, that's really where, I can think of certain things. I'm just, as you're talking, I'm thinking about myself and what are my, I hope you always dot, dot, dot. And
I
I'm
think it's
thinking
very
about those.
important. I think it's a very important exercise for anyone, because it's not a normal conversation that a couple has over dinner or while watching TV or just going through daily life, right? You have to first off, I mean, it's really a twofold process. You first got to think about what those are, as you're
Right.
doing right now. And then secondly, you have to have the boldness to be able to say that with the potential that the other person is going to react unexpectedly.
Correct.
A lot of people don't want to rock that boat, Laura. They would much. I'm happy things the way things are right now. Yes, we got this gorilla sitting over here in the corner that I would really like to talk about, but I'm afraid and I don't want to rock things, so I'm just going to avoid it. So it goes back to your point earlier, right? It's easier to avoid those things than it is to address them, because, as you just said, if you talk about that stuff, there are going to be some situations where you're going to look at what transpires from that little conversation, and you're going to be like, oh snap, I'm with the wrong person.
I can't do that. Right. I can't do that. I always think about this. So we've established that if we don't talk about them and there's something looming out there, which there in good probability may be, that one of those things will eventually cause the demise of your relationship in one way or the other. Okay, there could be something out there, right? So you can avoid it, but it will continue on until it causes the demise of your relationship, or you can walk through the face of fear with some courage, which is really hard, but I know we have it, people have it within them. Even though, and here's why most people don't do that, there's a threat of loss, right? There's a threat that someone will walk away.
It's the unknown. It's the
unknown.
What I found when I did the exercise with the Queen was that I learned a lot about myself, because here was the deal. As I said in the beginning, it's easy to gravitate, okay, towards those expectations that were learned through past relationship failures. And I would sit there and I would think to myself, well, I really hope that she this. But then when I would hear myself saying that out loud, I was like, Kyle, that's the most unrealistic thing in the world. First off, you're painting her with someone else's mistakes, and you know that's not right. And it's unrealistic for her to have to meet those hopes. Okay? It's a very learning, an eye-opening experience, both for you as trying to go through this, and then also for the other person listening to what he or she has to say.
Yes, and what we can do, if I can take this one step further, is we can take these expectations. If you can get to the place in your relationship where you can have this kind of conversation and be open to the
I
exercise.
look at it like this, okay? Especially to to your point earlier, upperclassmen like you and I are. Okay, we're in the middle of our life, and we're in our 40s, and certainly it's getting to the point where there's more roadway in the rearview mirror than there is in the windshield. So we have to take things a little bit more seriously than we did before. I think that you have the right to begin to have some of these types of conversations when you and the other person sincerely believe that there is an opportunity for long-term commitment here. That there,
Mm-hmm.
when you both feel, and I think that is a very common feeling. There are going to be people sometimes, simple people, who one person thinks that this thing is going to go to marriage and the other one doesn't even want to see her again or him again. But most of us understand that there's this common assurance that this relationship has some potential. I think when you get to that point, Laura, I think you have the right, and I would argue, especially for upperclassmen like we are, you almost have the obligation to begin to have some of those conversations. I've got children, she's got children. I think it's certainly something that we should be having. I would probably now, looking back on it, might have done it earlier. It wouldn't have changed the outcome, but I think it would have been a healthy exercise early in our dating relationship as opposed to waiting for when we were engaged.
It's interesting. I'll tell you. So so while Drew and I have been together for many years now, there's been this because my kids were a little bit younger. There's been the conversation about when your youngest, he'd be saying to me, when your youngest graduates, we'll start our life together. And it was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But of course, it was like 5 years away. Then it was
Right.
like 4 years away. Well, now it's just over a year away till he's going to graduate. And I have found myself looking at this beginning of our life together, and while we haven't called it an engagement or planned a wedding date, there's the same feeling of, wow, we need to talk about a few other things that we haven't yet had to tackle, because in some ways we did have somewhat parallel lives. While we shared it together, he's had his two kids, I've had my two kids, he's had his job, I've had my job. We've both led somewhat, parallel lives. And now it's this, okay, the kids are all going to be independent, and we're going to be coming together in an entirely new way. And he knows this, have felt this incredible desire now and need to say, okay, there's a few more things I think we need to talk about. What I hadn't done was really frame it in the way that you're laying out, which I think is a really good and healthy way to do it.
Laura, final thoughts.
It's just the beginning. This conversation that to have with someone that you and I agree with you, someone that there's even the remotest possibility that this could be something long term. The first round of this conversation, it would be a great time to start.
I think that we underestimate how often and how regularly we bring our past hurts and pains into new relationships. And if we aren't very careful, okay, we will begin to paint this new canvas that we're looking at and thinking, what is this going to be? Will this be the final masterpiece that I've been longing for so long? We can begin to paint that with, the old colors of our past relationship failures. And before we know it, we can look up and we all have painted exactly what we had done before. I think it is necessary for us to be open and honest. Be honest with ourselves, right? Just like I said, to say to yourself, that is the dumbest, most unrealistic thing ever that's coming out of my mouth. And to be able to recognize that that's my own selfishness and those expectations that are being looked at negatively and being forced upon the other person. We have to be mature enough to recognize that. And unless we do those things, we're going to find ourselves the exact same place in front of this canvas that we were in the last one.
Yeah, no more canvas. That's
Laura,
my final word.
until next time.
Bye.